Candace Owens has a message for Black Americans.
I challenge Black Americans to wake up to your true history, because your quarrel is not with white men.
Hey everyone, I'm Rich Lowry of National Review, and in response to the TPUSA conference where Ben Shapiro very prominently called Candace Owens out, Owens has responded with a stirring call on Black people to realize the evil of the Jews.
Wake up and learn the true history of slavery, because that wasn't exactly a white men sport, okay? Jewish people were the ones that were trading us. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade. They've buried a lot of it, but it's there.
So there you have it. The Jews were responsible for the slave trade. Does this make any sense? Of course it doesn't. First of all, we're talking about a very small part of the overall world population. The slave trade, this global phenomenon, we're supposed to believe that just this very, very tiny group of people controlled the whole thing. But then there are the specific problems with it, right? Spain and Portugal weren't into Jews. They didn't even let Jews into their empires. There was persecution of the Jews, and Western Europe had chased them east in the 16th century. So really were these Jews huddled on their shuttles controlling these massive slave trading fleets? No, it's absolutely bonkers. And a couple historians had a very good take on this a while ago. David Bryan Davis and Seymour Drescher, these two academics, wrote, Atlantic slavery was an intercontinental enterprise extending over nearly 4 centuries. Ethnically, the participants included Arabs, Berbers, score of African ethnic groups, Italians, Portuguese, Spaniards, Dutch, Jews, Germans, Swedes, French, English, Danes, white Americans, Native Americans, and even thousands of New World people of African descent who became slaveholding farmers or planters themselves. Of course, true to form, there's only one word that matters to Candace Owens in that litany. One little word: Jews. That's all she focuses on, of course. Now, if she actually wanted to bring real facts that a lot of people aren't aware of to bear on this matter, she could point out that the Atlantic slave trade, the Middle Passage, which was so horrific, wouldn't have existed without an African contribution. Africans captured other Africans and sold them into slavery. The African slave trade existed prior to Europeans showing up. It existed after Europeans left. But be that as it may, maybe Jews disproportionately contributed to slavery in America. No, this too is preposterous. The numbers are just vanishingly small. In Charleston in 1790, Jews owned 93 slaves. 93. That's not a lot, because there weren't many Jews in Charleston. There weren't many Jews in the American South at all. In Savannah in 1771, for instance, just 6 Jewish families. Look across the American South in 1893, an estimated 45,000 slave owners owned 20 slaves or more. Just 120 of those slave owners were Jewish. An estimated 12,000 slave owners owned 50 slaves or more. Just 20 of those slave owners were Jewish. But never mind, Candace Owens thinks she has the goods. That's what she has. She has a list of some names of Jews who owned slaves, and she thinks that proves her larger case. And Jews need to shut up about it. It's pathetic. But what's most interesting about the information is where it comes from. She got it from a book published by the Nation of Islam called The Secret Relationship Between Jews and Blacks. That is a crackpot anti-Semitic tract, the Nation of Islam's equivalent of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And this gets to a deeper point. When Owens says, as she did also in the screed prompted by Ben Shapiro, that Jews are dividing us, when she says they are responsible for assassinations and for conspiracies and for various crimes and all sorts of ills afflicting our society, and that Blacks need to unite against the Jews, she sounds like someone else who used to make this case, who also knew what to do around a microphone.
The satanic Jews that control everything and mostly everybody. If they are your enemy, then you must.
Now, Candace Owens doesn't sound like that, of course, because she's a podcaster, not a preacher. She's also not out organizing on the streets the way Farrakhan did. She's Catholic, he's Muslim, but she has the same sort of charisma in her own way that Farrakhan did. She's just as entertaining. She has the same kind of near sociopathic self-confidence in whatever she's saying, no matter how deceitful or wrong. And she may very well be bigger, certainly a bigger audience than Farrakhan ever had, and has a big role in a hugely important mainstream political movement in America, namely MAGA. Overall, I think, though, the most important thing to realize is that Farrakhan 2.0, in the form of Candace Owens, has an ideology just as ugly, just as irrational, and just as anti-Semitic as Farrakhan, the original. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.